Cheating.
That's okay. All right, I've got 6 o'clock. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks, everyone, for coming. I'm going to open up the meeting with a public information meeting about Potato Road Bridge and call it to order. So, gentlemen here from HEB. Thank you.
Do we need a motion to open the public hearing?
Can I have a motion to open the public meeting?
So moved.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Go ahead.
That looks okay. All right.
Chris, sorry, can you just text somebody that's on Zoom and just see if they can actually see it as well? Thank you. Go ahead, Chris.
Sure. All right. Yeah, thanks for having me tonight. I'm Chris Fournier with HEB Engineers, and I have Sam Brandt with HEB as well, taking notes for this project. We're here to present and hold a public informational meeting regarding the Potato Road Bridge project. This is a project that the town is managing through the New Hampshire DOT process. Just a little bit about this project. It's been around for a long time. I think we started in 2012 on this project. But the update on this project is that New Hampshire DOT is providing 80% funding of the design for this project. And the Federal Highway Administration is providing 100% construction funding of construction activities. So we're here tonight because of the addition of that federal funding adds additional requirements for the project. So we're here to provide just a general overview of the project status and then receive public input regarding that. Because of the funding sources, we need to follow a detailed process called the LPA process. That's the local public agency. So the town is the local public agency and is managing the process with New Hampshire DOT oversight, and then New Hampshire DOT reports back to Federal Highway Administration. So it is a town project. Tonight's meeting is one of the required steps in the federally regulated process. So we do have a separate sign-in sheet. If everybody could make sure to sign on there, that'd be appreciated. So we can document that we had good attendance. Just to familiarize folks with the project area. So the Indian River comes from right to left and meanders. Potato Road coming off Route 4, and we have the Northern Rail Trail that generally follows Route 4 along in the east-west direction. And the bridge we're talking about primarily is crossing the Indian River just as Potato Road starts to go up the hill. So it's generally flat in this area with these large fields and floodplains on each side of the road once you get over the railroad corridor. Existing conditions out there. It's a wood deck bridge with some that was looking up the hill, and this is looking back towards the floodplain. Currently posted for 15-ton with some pretty old steel girders that are in pretty rough shape. So that condition has been the catalyst of this project the bridge receiving funds and the town receiving funds. These are photos of the condition of that bridge if you can get under there. So one of the significant project considerations that has been discussed for quite a long time now is we do have the bridge, located at the bottom of the screen, but I think most folks here have experienced that the road itself overtops pretty frequently when the river utilizes the floodplain.
There's
So-
a Zoom problem.
Yeah, they can't see it now.
People at home cannot see the slides.
So are you sharing?
Yeah.
Over here.
Yeah, it's off with that.
What do you mean?
You just go to the green thing, you can just see what it's.
Yeah.
Share and then.
Oh, there it goes, right
Screen
there.
on.
Yeah.
Oh, no, you're on the right one.
You're on the right one, right?
No,
the other
no,
one.
it's, I think it's, is it right?
There you go. Yeah,
Can they see it?
should be able to see now.
Okay. So yeah, the area in blue is where the river accesses the floodplain and regularly overtops the road. So back, this project's been going on for a long time. We've been through certain steps in the process, and early on in the process, the project did not have federal funds. It was a state-only funded project through what's called the State Aid Bridge Program, which had pretty limited funding at the time. The engineering study we conducted at that point recommended replacement of the bridge and raising of the roadway through this entire stretch and improving a set of floodplain culverts. And at that time, the state program did not have enough funding to do these floodway improvements. So it was really the project was primarily focused on the bridge. So the purpose of our project at this point in time is to correct structural deficiencies of the bridge and then maintain access during flood events and minimize future maintenance costs on the town. So through the development of bridge alternatives, so what we're doing at this point is revisiting the study that we've done a long time ago. The alternatives we looked at, preservation is not applicable for this project, but the next level of work on the bridge to improve its structural condition is rehabilitation, which is just any major activity to restore it, but not really fully replacing the bridge. And then the last major action would be complete replacement of the bridge structure. So the alternative analysis that was done back in a while back now at this point, and then revisited it now, had three alternatives. So alternative A was to simply just rehabilitate the existing bridge by doing a superstructure replacement, so just replacing the superstructure that we had photos of that is not in great condition. Alternative B was to replace the entire bridge itself. And then alternative C, which I was talking about earlier, was to replace the bridge and improve raising the road and improving the floodplain culvert. So just evaluating the three different alternatives. This is the rehabilitation alternative, as I said. So it's really maintaining the existing bridge span of 49 feet, largely replacing the structure in kind, so steel girders and wood deck. And the point of this alternative at the time when it was done and sort of just continuing on now is to provide the least costly alternative. That was what was selected by the town at that time. The goal of this project was to reuse the existing substructures, so the existing abutments at each end, and did not include any change to the roadway profile and did not have any floodway improvements in it.
Is that 900,000 today or from back in 2009?
That's today. So we have revisited those old alternatives and updated them for current costs. So today's dollars, that would be a $900,000 project, fairly short construction duration of 2 months, and then as it is, some components are remaining, it would only be considered to have a lifespan of about 50 years. Alternative B, which we'll talk about, was ultimately selected in the past, was replacement of the bridge itself with a new 56-foot clear span. So just adding a little bit of length to that to increase its hydraulic capacity. It also included raising the bottom chord, again, to make sure there are no flooding issues with the bridge itself. But as I stated, did not include any roadway or floodway improvements. However, the bridge was designed so that it could accommodate a future roadway raising if the town was able to secure funding or do it themselves at a future time. So the costs that we've estimated for alternative B is $1.6 million with a bit longer construction duration because of that substructure work of 4 months, but an expected lifespan of 120 years. And flood improvements only to the bridge, with keeping an eye out for future floodplain improvements later.
When you say construction duration, is that the total time the road would be closed for?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. Alternative C is kind of building off of alternative B, so it includes that same bridge replacement project, but also includes raising the roadway for the entire stretch within the floodplain by about 2 feet. So it's not a whole lot that needs to go up, but we do need to improve the floodplain culverts that are there. There are 2 culverts there existing. They're rather small, but by stopping the water from going over the road, we need to improve the area for the water to go through the road. So that's why an improved floodplain culvert is needed to accommodate that. So the overall project cost here is right at $3 million effectively, with a 6-month construction duration. And then continue with that lifespan of 120 years, and sort of that total flood improvement is included in this alternative. So looking at that alternative analysis, just in general, at this point. And ultimately, because of that increased federal funding, alternative C has been determined as the preferred alternative to move forward, which really captures everything the town wanted to do back during the first engineering study phase. But with this increased federal funding, we're actually able to do that. So yeah, this, I should have this earlier in the presentation, but looking back, that engineering study was completed in the fall of 2018, and ultimately the design and permitting of alternative B did move forward and completed in 2020. During the COVID timeframe is where the federal funds were starting to come around, and formally in 2022, the town was granted the increased federal funds. And then it was negotiated with DOT to add the floodplain improvements as well. So that took a bit of time where the project was stalled out, but overall in the pretty good benefit of the town. So in the LPA phases, we had progressed all the way to the final design phase of the LPA process with the alternative B. Fortunately, that bridge design is still good today. We're going to update it a little bit, but fortunately it was designed to accommodate the future floodplain improvements anyway. So now we're able to just build off that design and complete the design. We do need to take sort of one step back. So we are back in the preliminary design phase, where we need to go through the design process for the floodplain improvements, bring that up to speed with the rest of the bridge project, and then proceed towards final design, bidding, and construction. When we get to the point of final design, as this is a federal project, there is a formal right-of-way process. So at that time, we need to finalize our right-of-way plans and impacts, determine just compensation for any properties that are impacted by the construction. There's this pretty significantly regulated process for negotiating and acquiring those impacted property rights. There are 3 different methods for doing that. Waiver valuation are for minor sort of strip impacts. Appraisals are for more significant impacts or complex properties. And then eminent domain is kind of a last resort. Anybody who may be abutting of the property, just important to note that discussions regarding those acquisitions or easements cannot begin until final design. So these meetings are meant to be that first introduction to the project, and but that formal discussions can't happen until a later point. Regarding those right-of-way impacts for the preferred alternative, that was the bridge replacement and raising of the entire roadway 2 feet. It is anticipated that the raising of the roadway will cause fill slopes to extend outside of the existing right-of-way. And therefore, their expected right-of-way impacts along the entire length of the project. Looking forward, the proposed project schedule, the town received a revised project agreement this summer. Moving forward with design and permitting of alternative C for completion in the fall of 2025. With bidding later that winter and then construction the following summer in 2026. With closeout proceeding to at the end of 2026. So that concludes our
Is that the
presentation.
same timetable, construction timetable as Grist Mill?
It's
Same summer?
sooner because we're further down the
Grist Mill's
road.
2027.
Yeah, that's gonna be important to make sure
We had
that
both of
we're,
them closed at the same time.
yeah, all aligned together, yeah.
Except the good news on Gristmill, because of relocation, that
Yeah,
won't
but
have
it's
to
still
be closed.
crazy, yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so at this point, any input from the board, or if you'd like to open it up for public comment?
Anybody have any questions? Bob?
Who's lane, the money for the bridge construction was 100%. When we add the road, is that on us or is that included in what the federal money is gonna be?
It's all included.
Oh, cool.
That's what was, so it took a little while to negotiate all that with DOT. 'Cause at first, the state, offered to use the federal funds for the ongoing bridge project. And then we asked the question, well, remember when we had that discussion about the rest of the project that you folks could afford at that point in time? Now that there's more money, can you afford it? And that took a little while, but the ultimate answer was yes.
Hey, Hugh, any concerns with emergency services getting around, having to go around South Road or up over Bristol to get to those houses on that side?
We actually don't go up on Bristol right now,
So you-
maybe an ambulance,
So,
but yeah, so it's gonna be.
Gonna have to go all the way up to-
Ballpark, so the extended run around there.
is
That slope and that turn is just too tight to really put our trucks on all the time, so.
so ballpark's faster than going out to south and coming back up south on it?
That's not where it is,
Okay.
in that,
All right,
thing, and. One of those 24-inch culverts where you're looking to put that box culvert is actually failed right now. We're actually slated, we got the culvert to do a replacement on that before orders.
Yep.
That failed in May.
yeah,
Collar came part of the culvert.
right. Good. Anyone else? Chris, thank you very much.
All right, yeah, thanks for having us.
Move to close the public hearing.
Second, all in favor? Aye.
Thanks.
You were very official about this.
Yeah.
Why are you here?
Process.
What do you need?
I haven't read the minutes yet.
So we've got public record, public minutes from August 6th and August of select board hearing from August 8th for the special town meeting. I want to thank Monica if she's going to make an effort to get those out on Monday for us so we can pre-read them and not spend time here at the meeting with you guys all in here. I did get a chance to go over them, so I wasn't at either meeting physically, but.
Yeah.
So, and there was lots of fun about that earlier than before everybody got here. So I'm just gonna give Sadie, I think Scott went through them, but.
Okay, I'll move to approve from. August,
6 and 8. 6 first.
yeah, we'll do the 6th first. I'll read this one.
Second.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Like,
Aye.
All abstained.
I'll move to approve the minutes of August 8th, but then I have a correction.
Go ahead.
We have to have a second before we discuss.
Second.
It says that there's a deliberative session and then it says election is on Tuesday. Can we change that?
To town meeting.
Yeah, something like that. We're not really electing. We're gonna elect whether or not to move forward with it, but if we could change that.
That was Saturday.
Yeah, it's on page 2, and it's the last non-bolded section.
Have a motion to approve as amended by Sadie.
So moved.
Second,
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, actually, I will sign that because I was there via Zoom. And this is just a reminder on the special town meeting, the dates.
Yeah, it's just
Okay.
basically dates and reminders that we're having.
So deliberative session for the special town meeting for the water system upgrades will be this Saturday, August 24th at 9 AM in this room. And then town meeting voting day or town meeting day will be Tuesday, September 24th at 1 to 6. And that's gonna be the fire station?
Yeah.
Or are we gonna do that here as well for the voting?
It was in, I think it was in this room, but if we had an overflow need, we would move to the fire station.
do we wanna determine what time we're gonna split it up for the 3 of us to be there?
Sure,
Okay.
It's 1 to 6.
1 to 6, yeah.
Mhm.
Any preference from either of you?
You,
Makes no difference.
Yeah, this, we brought it up at a department head meeting, and Aaron was gonna check on that as far as the spacing that was required for that.
yeah, we're good.
I would prefer to do earlier. I
Okay.
have a meeting I can't miss at 4,
So
so if I could do like
1 to 1:30 or 1 to 2:30?
1 to 1:30.
1 to 2:30?
Yeah, I'll do 1 to 2:30.
Do you care? I don't care.
No, I don't care.
Why don't you do, I'll finish up. I can do it, stay over the count, so 2:30 to
24.
4. Yeah. I'll do 4 to 6.
So we can have it here, though. I know in the past we were concerned, like Hugh was saying, about spaces. And we couldn't find any other place to vote. Is it because it's different than a typical?
It's because it's special and I know that Ann talked to the people at the state. And it meets the need. So she did check all of it.
Okay, but we'll still continue regular voting at the fire station right now, so we don't have
Yes.
any other option. Okay. Thank you.
We are working on a plan to change that too.
I know we've been working on it for a while, but. We haven't made any progress. I haven't found any place, so, okay.
So there's a request to reconsider the appropriations for voter approved non-warrant articles. This is the nonprofit money we give away. Is anybody here for that? For this, for the health center requested payment out in September. And I know it got tabled at the last meeting. I know they brought up the fact that they got paid in September last year, but that was actually a mistake on Carrie Ann's part because she was new when the bill came in or the request came in and she paid it. Typically, we paid all of those in the fourth quarter in December. Any discussion on that from anybody here?
I have a question, if maybe I could ask, I know that volunteers there. In the presentation at the last meeting, it was said that it's one of only 2 clinics in the state that accepts Medicaid. I was looking on for New Hampshire Smiles and it seems like there are others, not that I'm saying that that's a detriment, but it seemed like there were more than 2. Is that maybe 2 in Grafton County?
Honestly, I don't know the answer
Okay.
to that. I do know that there are a limited number of places in the state that accept Medicaid. And, even more limited in where
Yeah, I mean, I saw primarily it was southern New Hampshire and the seacoast area where it's more populated for sure, so.
So I don't know the exact number, I will just say the, I don't know whether it's prescribed or not. But I do know it's very, very limited. We have a lot of folks coming to us. Through who are covered, by Medicaid.
So the other thing I want to say is that I know, I don't want to make a special, I personally don't want to make a special exception to one organization and not treat all the organizations the same way. So if we're going to pay out one, we're really, in my opinion, suggesting that we pay out all to the nonprofits. And again, it's going against what we've done in the past.
Can I speak
So-
to that?
You can,
I think what I would ask the board to consider is the unique status of the health center. Unlike all of the other organizations, and I voted for every article. All of the other organizations are very fine organizations. But I think the circumstances surrounding the health center are different from all of the other organizations in that. The health center is the only organization that is located in Canaan. That we do have a senior center here, but it is one of several, and the appropriation of one of them is to the Grafton County Council, not just this particular senior center. So the health center is the only one located here. I think in the last 6 years, almost 40% of our patient load came from Canaan. And the fact is that I think it represents both an amazing contribution to the health, both in terms of medical and dental. But I think it also represents, frankly, an economic asset for the town in providing yet another asset that we can point to as contributing to the quality of life and the reason, to be attracted to businesses, et cetera. And then finally, I think it's frankly a point of pride. There's nothing that says that you have to fund all of them. I do think there is a legitimate argument to be made because of the status of the health center, as well as the fact that, this essentially is like a startup. With Health First coming in, we're still working through that relationship. The dental center has started up again last fall, but we just added in the month of August 2 full-time dentists to try and meet the need and the capacity, and that is created additional expenses. It's an investment in the future, and but unfortunately, the insurance payments and the Medicaid payments aren't coming quite as quickly, but we're trying to meet the need. So I do think there is an argument to be made why the health center is different from the other organizations. Not to take away anything from those other organizations, they're all doing great.
anyone else?
I-
Bob,
About their city first.
So at the last meeting, I had the same thought process that you did, Stephen, and then I thought about it a lot. I don't know that we have to pay out all because this is the only organization that's requested it.
Mm, we've already got another one, put a request in.
And then I feel like, yes, we've always paid them out in the fourth quarter. But a majority of the population of our voters voted to approve it. So if it were a bill and we had to pay it, we would pay it when it's requested to be paid. I feel like the value that the town gets in so many ways compared to us just paying out 10,000, I feel like that it outweighs it. And so like, I'll hear what Bob says, but then I'll make a motion that we pay. And if when there's not a second and we don't agree, then we don't agree, but
You making that motion now?
well, I was gonna hear what Bob
Okay.
Pheasant Lane has to say.
So everything, I agree with everything that Tom said, and I agree with everything that Sadie said, and I think both of those go towards supporting them. What's the? Besides budgeting, what's the reason to pay it earlier, and do we have? When do we get all our tax money to come in to pay this? Do we have to take out a loan to pay this?
Yes. We will have to, we're gonna have to take out a loan either way to cover
We are,
a tax visit at the end of the year. We've got enough money to get through November, and then before tax bills go out in December, we're gonna have to borrow some money.
in November, we will have to borrow money. If we had a fund balance, that this wasn't going to affect paying interest on anything we spend that we don't have to. There'd be no conversation, I think. The question is, we're gonna have to take out our tax anticipation note probably early to mid-November.
And we're not borrowing $10,000 to cover that. I mean, we're gonna have to borrow more than that.
It's
obviously,
borrowing
so-
for the whole thing. It's just, okay, it's an additional thing we're paying interest.
Yeah,
on. That's the
but I-
question.
Like the reason I thought we waited till the fourth quarter is because tax money started coming in, but
It is, and really, so. The first tax bill of the year, from June, that really doesn't have the increase in taxes that we voted on in April. We don't see that until December. So everything we added to the budget and we're covering now on a 2023 budget until December, when we start to see that money come in. So that's the challenge, and quite frankly, that's why you have an unassigned fund balance, is that I mean.
Well, that's why
So
we should have.
That's why we should have.
We should have, correct. That's good.
So, and that's was
clarification.
part of the reason why 2 weeks ago I was like, oh, I just can't. But
And I mean, we're tight on the budget this year. I mean, we really are very tight. And well, Karen's gonna talk about it, but I'm getting kind of.
just to reiterate, I guess what I started with is all of those are good reasons to support them. But it just seems to me like a budgeting issue, quite frankly, for community health center, which for the record, I'm changing my doctor to go there. I'm not against it in any way. I just don't know if changing the financial structure to get the money earlier, I don't know that makes sense to me. If we had budgeted to do it in December, then why wouldn't we?
I don't know that we budgeted to do it in December. Historically, it was done in December. And some of that is that we had a very financially conservative board for a really long time. So we have no policy in place that says when we pay, it's just what we've done.
Okay.
Dan,
If we pay that out now, what are the effects to us? And are we taking a separate individual loan to pay that out and then taking a tax anticipation note? Or are we taking
No.
a tax anticipation note early so we can pay that out?
neither. We have the money to cover it now. I don't think it was in effect when we take the tax anticipation out in November. It may by a week or something, but
If
it's not.
we add this one or all of them, we'll just be taking it out a week or two earlier.
so yes, it will have some impact, but I mean, in real honesty, no, but we're also asking the voters to pay interest on a payment that they, really wasn't part of the warrant article they signed up for, so.
Do we have some sort of a plan in place so we're not in the red on the unassigned fund balance going forward?
Yeah, we're trying to get there.
Yeah,
We're trying to get there, Dan. So,
I'm
I
trying to,
understand,
a lot of it is,
yeah,
you know, yeah, we've been in the red for years.
close to it, or in the red.
Huh?
Yes, you're
Yes.
correct.
We've been walking a fine line.
No, we've been in the red. We were $150,000 plus in the red in 19.
I'm saying we're still walking a fine line.
Indeed, we are. So, which makes me wonder why we're looking at paying other people before we keep the money ourselves to make sure what we're gonna do. So, on a year where we're walking that fine of a line, why would we consider taking money early that we don't usually do? I just don't understand that.
Well, the other side of it is this was voted to pay out in March by warrant article.
It was voted in March, but it wasn't voted to pay out in March.
It was voted that we pay these 5 organizations the money.
Right.
Where the problem comes is there's never been, that I know of, there's never been anything stated as to when these payments are actually made.
Right, so that's a good point. That actually
And-
says my point. So why wouldn't we just go along and do it in December like we have been traditionally? When on such a tight year, we're trying to pull the money early. We all know that money's gonna need to go somewhere else between now and December.
Well, we got a number of
Somebody
places,
else will have it instead of us, right?
but the money, when the town voted by warrant article to pay these organizations, you're obligated to pay it. Because it's a warrant article.
Hey, it's a question
Yeah.
of when, right?
It's a question of when. But it's also, right now, they've shown the need that this is what they're saying is when that they need it. They're entitled to it because it was voted.
I understand that. But as a tax community, I feel like when right now is when we need that money to sit there too. So who takes precedence, the taxpaying residents of Canaan or the health center?
The other thing that we could do is, I mean, I could make a motion and see what happens with it, that we pay it and that we, determine when we'll pay these out going forward. And if we agree like fourth quarter, I mean, what'd you say our rate is, Chat?
6.5.
We're good?
Is there does anyone have any other input?
I guess the question, how long has the healthcare center been in operation at this point? Anybody know exactly how long they've been here?
I don't know.
7.5 years, something like that.
7 years and we're still at the point where they're not sure that they're gonna make it through December unless they get that 10 grand.
Well, I think it's a little different because they restarted the dental program that closed. So I think the medical side joined with Health First and became a federally qualified health center. So they are eligible to receive more in Medicare reimbursement. If
Are you,
it's not our responsibility to keep the health center afloat, but what does it mean for our community? And then the dental practice, but if they lose one of their dentists.
is the $10,000 gonna keep them afloat? I mean, they're 40,000 behind right now, I think it's what. She said last meeting, so.
We've, approaches have been made to the Grafton, I think it's the redevelopment organization for a loan or a line of credit. I know they made an approach and got a commitment from Dartmouth for $45,000. So they're seeking other sources. And it's really at this point, it truly is a matter of getting through the next couple of months, really, until the payments from insurance, payments from Medicaid start to, with the additional dentists, the ability to, increase patient load. When those payments will come in, but they're not coming in today. They're not coming in this week.
Well, a lot of your insurance companies are normally 60 to 90 days after care is given, so.
Yeah, I would also say that, the other point I would make is that the health center is making, and I'm not sure how much it is, but they are making payment in lieu of taxes. Which I think, I'm not sure whether any of the other organizations are doing.
Just a FYI, the health center was incorporated in the state in 2014.
So it's 10
Yeah,
years.
but it has.
I'm not saying when it started, it's just
It was incorporated in
Yeah.
2014, but it started operating, I believe, in 2017.
That's a question.
Just a second, I appreciate the payment in lieu of taxes. Do you happen to know what that is?
No, I don't.
I don't either. Okay.
I believe it's $20,000,
How much?
only $1,000.
Well,
So I personally wouldn't be against doing it now, but maybe if you do decide to go forward with it. But for them to budget differently so that we don't have to do this every year.
It's gonna be hard for them to budget differently when you have the same person running the budget.
No, it's not gonna be hard, they just need to change their budget. It doesn't matter to the person,
okay,
Well,
that's, all right.
it's not here.
Yeah, Bob,
it does.
we're not gonna get personal.
So Chet, if we were to advance funds on the TAN in mid-November, how long do we think it would be outstanding? When do we start seeing funds coming in?
Well, we see funds starting, I think it was 3 to 4 weeks after we bill. This past year, because the county was late getting their numbers in, we weren't able to bill till near December, so it was like in the Christmas time where we'd have enough. We might not pay it, we might have to pay it like right at the end of December, because I think our deadline's the 31st.
Okay,
So it may be like right there.
so $10,000 at 6.5% accrues $1.78 a day. So for 30 days, it would be $53.42 potential debt service.
Mhm.
But if we pay it out in fourth quarter, we're going to advance that extra 10,000 regardless.
Right.
Right? It's just, it's.
I mean,
it could
the
break
reality
down
is
for
I
days.
think, and it's kind of where we are system wide is, we just need to create a policy, whether we do this or
We need
not,
to
it's not
create
gonna make or
somebody.
break the town, we just should say, this is how we're gonna do things.
I'm gonna move that we pay this now and that we set a precedent that going forward, so starting in 25, that we pay in fourth quarter. We wanna say a month,
I would, and I would probably say
December or
December
fourth quarter?
1st. Like,
December
not before
1st.
December 1st, I think would be the, because we're never gonna see the real money to pay the TAN back. Oh, I'm hoping in 3 years, we don't need a tax anticipation. You know, that would be the goal. And that's what we're kind of working on through the budgeting process this year, but. And then we'll be a little less, but it just when unknowns and surprises, you know, you just we wanna be able to plan better and say, okay, we know we're gonna be putting this 50,000 out at this time. You know, and cash flow matters in the current environment, ran more than it will in the future. So,
All right, so that's my motion. We'll see if I get a second.
Excuse me, could I, before the motion, could I make a suggestion? Ask a question. This is Claude Lemoy. Hello?
Go ahead, Claude.
First, the quick question. When is the health center requesting this $10,000 from the town?
Last week,
I mean, when would they like it? Now?
now.
now,
Last week.
I see. Thought I was hearing November. What I was gonna.
I think the health center would be fine. Last year we paid in September, in early September, and I forget the date. I think the health center would be fine with a similar, you know, so it's not today.
So let's say September. Here's my suggestion. Maybe 3 or 4 of us taxpayers in town, and I will include myself, would be willing to pay our December bill early to cover the 10,000, so we wouldn't have to borrow it. If we can find 3 other people, maybe we could do that.
That would be great, Claude. We just don't have a tax rate yet. So we.
I know that, but
Yeah.
we know
But
within,
that-
we know within a few $100s what my bill will be. You know, if I paid the same as last year, then I'd be liable to make up the difference in December, but last year's amount for me and 3 other people would probably cover this.
I think that's very generous of you. I don't know if we could collect it before it was billed, but you could always make a donation to the health center.
Not
That-
that, no. But it's not that generous. I'd pay you early.
That was very nice, Claude.
But hear me out. What I'm saying is, if 3 or 4 people could do that, that might cover it. And then come December, if we had underpaid by a few hundred or whatever, then we'd be liable to make up the difference then, that's all.
I'm gonna let Chet speak to that.
I mean, it's, at the end of the day, it's not gonna dramatically change our tax anticipation though, unless, you know, it actually has a more of effect if we do all of them.
All right.
But if we do just the one, it's not the end of the world. It's a premise of paying interest ahead and making payments of things we don't necessarily have to, and past precedent, you know what I mean? The goal is, what are we gonna do going forward? I'm not really as worried about what we're doing today as what we're gonna do going forward.
You are correct. The future years is the more important consideration. I just thought we could make the current temporary impasse go away perhaps just for this one time on a voluntary basis.
Okay. I don't think we'll,
Whatever.
do that. I think the board's gonna decide here in a minute.
All right.
Maybe getting cold.
Thank you, Claude.
I'm not sure I want to have that as all one motion though. Deciding our future payment dates.
Oh, no, I think we talk about that in the future, make the decision on this, and then we'll draw up a little
Well, we already have a
appropriations
second,
policy or
so then you
something.
So we
request
can
to
amend
it.
We can request to amend to drop the payment date for further discussion. And just be,
Roger, I'll amend my motion.
One later.
Yeah, Yeah, so that we'll discuss 25, yeah.
So we have a motion to pay out the health center $10,000 warrant for September 1st, seconded by Scott. All in favor?
I don't think I said September 1st, though.
I would just said.
Well, what's, I mean, what's?
I guess
today,
I can pick that
22?
up from Claude when they needed it by.
It'll be in next week's check run. It'll be going out at the
Okay.
end of the week. Like, it'll be around September 1st.
Okay,
All in favor?
I,
Nay. So. Okay. Thank you. And we have a sort of an update on Clark Pond and Silvio Conti Refuge and River Road and
I've had,
Been on
I've
it
had
for-
a couple of people send emails, talking about, I don't know why we're not paving River Road, because I understand all we had to do was sign a grant, and we were gonna get the money to do the paving. It was part of the program to get Clark Pond access to improved. And in talking, I finally learned, and I think Stephen and I were having a conversation last month about Silvio Conte. I didn't know the name of the refuge. Looked that up in my emails. The last email came from early in 23. And the town had not finished, and and the change, like, the conversations go back to like 2016 or 17 when all of this started. But we have never actually made the formal application. The application wasn't submitted. We have not been approved nor denied to date. And in talking, I sent the email to Andrew French, and he said, Chet, we should consider getting back to the design of the project so we are ready for the next federal land access program FLAP application period. And we're willing to meet, and we're trying to set up a meeting with all the different parties. So we are going to explore that and look forward. It sounds like, whatever they do work on, we may be able to get something out of it, but we're gonna find out what it is, what they do approve, what they will, and when the next application process is. So currently, there is no active grant monies or anything of that nature available to do the work. River Road has reached a point in my conversations with Bob, and we've looked. There's only a couple of culverts that need to be replaced, but the paving is beyond patching. And as we go through over the next couple of weeks, we're gonna be looking at the potential of if we choose to reclaim any of these other roads in preparation for what's coming, because Goose Pond Road, as bad as it is, most of the failures are related to drainage failures. And I'm getting 2 proposals to do an analysis of what we have to do with the infrastructure, but if we do decide to do some reclaiming, we may want to reclaim that road. And next year might be all just drainage repair on Goose Pond. And then we can then see where the course of the Clark Pond issue is going next year and then work on that. So possibilities coming up, but I wanted everybody just to know the status of what the Silvio Conte grants and that stuff is today.
Okay.
So I wanted to say something, and at the risk of putting Jenny completely on that spot, we talked with Andrew at a conservation commission meeting, and my understanding from that was that they would potentially help improve the access road to Clark Pond, but nothing to do with paving. Did you get that same impression?
I think there's different pots of money for different purposes.
Okay,
And actually, I did talk to Andy, he called me.
okay,
I think that I think what they need to really look at is what he stated over and over again, because there's like 36 Silvio Conte regions, refugees in New England. And it's wildlife first, people second. And he reiterated that to me several times. So whatever the grant money or the plan going forward, that is the way grant money is administered. Because I told him I had some concerns about access into wetlands, and we talked about that at the conservation meeting, and he said that's a class A wetland on Clark Pond, and that is considered that by the state and federal. And so what they're thinking to do is do turn-offs on the road and not make them double the width of the road. But this is all preliminary. And he did state over and over again that everything is gonna be in a public hearing. So,
But exciting to restart the conversation, I think, and see what happens, so. Thank you, Chet.
Yeah, and the one part, and I remember seeing it, the flap was one of the applications, there was actually two separate application procedures, and I'm not sure what they covered, but I think we're just basically starting from scratch.
Okay,
So,
thank you. Thanks for tracking that down after our conversation. Facility repairs and upgrades.
yeah, the only thing on the docket for tonight is the one thing we were talking about, related to highways and buildings and things of that nature, was the fact that we have 4 generators. Some of them are not in that great a condition. We have not upgraded or started to work on a service program for them. We had a proposal from back in 23
End of 23.
that was for $600 per, for 3 of them and 700 for the other, for a major PM price. So for $2,500, we could actually, and that's an old price, I have to update it, but in that neighborhood of $2,500 to $3,000 price range, we could get these on a preventive maintenance program, get them all serviced up, and then we can see what the condition is. From my understanding, Hugh was talking about, I think one of them we know is way undersized, and it may be more than that. We need to do an evaluation of where we are so we can do some capital planning related to generators. So that's one item that I just wanted to get authorization that we could approach the generator maintenance agreement to get these things up to speed, hopefully.
Yeah, I'm all for that. I just, I thought we had actually, it was part of the CIP conversation last year, but maybe it was just conversation and not really anything done as far as money, so. So,
It could have been because.
Claude, do you recall? Claude, are you still on?
I'm still here, and that would never be capital. It's a service. So
Not the service, but the actual upgrade of the generators. I thought Mike Reese was put together something as far as CIP.
Sal sent me the spreadsheet and it
again,
basically
it was
told
for
me that-
service activity.
Yeah.
Capital would be to buy a new generator, but to fix one or service it would not be capital. So it's not part of CIP last year.
Yeah, and in the spreadsheet that Sal sent me was EOC ambulance police was adequate. To the need, it was actually met the need. This was that the firehouse and highway both are currently serviceable, water plant currently not wired. Wastewater pump station in place, needs to be replaced with a propane one. And there's none at the town office and library. This is what was presented as far as what they determined was the status of them at that time.
Hugh, am I imagining it, or have I heard that the generator at the fire station is not even sufficient to open the door if we don't have power?
So if we come in and you fire the truck and the doors at the same time, our Plimo vent system does such a draw, it'll kill the power. So if you don't go over and shut the Plimo vent off before you open the doors, you gotta go over and reset everything, and hopefully the generator, well, not refire the generator.
And hopefully the door is on the way in.
Or manually open the door. So at 2 o'clock in the morning, when you're not quite thinking straight, the power's out, because you clock it down here, it's an issue. And that one at the highway department is way undersized, because it can't even weld anything. If we have something break in the middle of a storm, we gotta go and try to get our portable welder out of the pit. Weld something, it's at 15K. Well, by the time we have all our lighting stuff fired up over there and our other work and stuff, we kill the generator.
So just want to get them serviced, get a new status, and then develop a plan for what do we have to replace as quickly as possible. Based on that conversation.
And you have, Kane Elementary School does not have a generator. That would
Does not
not
have a
fall under the
generator.
town. That would not fall into the town though either. So
Right.
No,
that would fall under the school budget.
Yeah.
Along with the high school and then elementary school or the middle school we support. Thank you. Carrie Ann.
For the August finance update, I started off in the same format. Revenue, the general fund revenue is 49% collected currently. And I'm getting the percentage off of what we reported to the DRA on the MS 737. So I just take what we collected and divide it into that, and that's where the percent comes from. The Q1 water sewer bills are collected, and we are currently working on Q2 billing for water and sewer.
Do we have an ETA on when those will go out? So I thought it was gonna be.
He's
August.
in the process of doing the readings right now. We're hoping very quickly.
Because we're almost up to Q3 bills, so. We better get caught up before the end of the year.
Well, according to John, we're gonna start the new meter replacements this month. We're trying to get 10 of them done. And we can
How many are
start
we replacing?
200.
We're replacing all of them?
Well, no, 160. Because anything that has cell service will then be able to be automated into the new software that we approved a couple of months ago. So we're not quite there yet. We're gonna still be doing manually into the new system. So that's gonna be an experiment this month too.
Who's doing the installs, John?
Yeah.
Well, so we're.
Yeah, I know. I'm aware.
You know what? But we don't. In the public meetings, what are you talking about?
I just,
Well, John is
John's
running behind getting the
160.
readings done, plus we gotta replace meters, so
it's
it's.
gonna
a
go
time
try to
issue.
replace 160 meters. I'm kind of
Well, the
concerned
goal-
about John being able to do 160
Right,
meters.
and
in a time.
one of the things that we're looking at is can we get the company that provides them to help maybe get some installs done, so we gotta look at that and get some pricing.
Has our new water sewer operator trainee started?
Yesterday,
Okay, great.
How are you hearing? And then the August unspent expenditures, we just hired the full-time water sewer operator. The highway department has their full-time people staffed now. So, once September gets here, a lot of our savings in health insurance is gonna stop because we'll finally be fully staffed on all the full-time positions. So breaking out all the excess in full-time positions, health insurance, retirement, the total is $211,000 that we haven't spent on wages and insurance so far. So then I listed the possible expenses that we've talked about. Extra stand that we will put up for winter is 30,000, and this would all come from the excess in the operating expense. Then the extra needed from the gravel bid that came in would be 30,000. We got a quote to upgrade the town fuel tanks at $15,000. The senior center roof was quoted at 40,000, 44,000.
For the other half,
for the other 3/4.
3/4.
The part that's in the back,
To do this year.
well, this is all possible projects
Oh.
and we have to decide that.
Okay.
Right now. It would only be 50-50 if we released it, that it could happen this year anyway, just from scheduling
Yeah,
issues, so. Basically, he said if he could do it, it'd be October the earliest.
So we're just looking at the budget access and the possibilities that have been coming in over the last couple of months. Because then, they were also looking at reclaiming Goose Pond and Switch Road, and that would be a $100,000 expense potentially.
So, yeah, these are all things that if we tried to fit them in, if that was the desire for timing reasons, whether it's, we wanna get things reclaimed. Because the roads are so bad, like even plowing River Road's not even possible. You know, in a decent way, and anytime you add salt to broken roads, you just make it worse because it thaws the sub base anyway and end up with massive. Bumps and valleys.
you know what that's like after a year of South Road being unpaved.
So it's great now. I have questions about some specific lines that are way over, just like out of curiosity, so. Custodial and housekeeping. Do you know why it's over? It says supplies, I think.
We did start asking the custodian to bring their own supplies, so now we're paying. Instead of going out and buying our own and charging it to our own office supply line, it's been coming in across the invoice. And we also asked her to pick up a couple extra hours to catch up on some of the wish lists from the department head.
Okay, and then, other charges and expenses. Line 810.
I would have to look into the breakdown and see what all lines are included in that.
Okay. And then. Is the supplies, the custodial and housekeeping, is that offset in a different line item? Or do we just need to change how we budget next year to?
I think
include
we have
that?
to update how we budget because we did a lot of work with our current company to see how we're paying versus what we're expecting them to perform. And we weren't paying them anywhere near market going rate. So we're working on putting in the 2025 budget, the actual cost of the actual work that we want to have done.
That's good, that's better than just like throwing a dart at it. Yeah, thank
Well,
you.
the goal is, we've had issues with, we've fallen way behind. I mean, different areas have not been getting cleaned the way they are, but it's been primarily because we kept the really tight rein on what we could spend and versus we're not cleaning and then just being able to pay for that.
Okay.
So is the cleaning,
Dan?
so it's the same cleaning company. Yeah. Right? So the system before was we were purchasing and stocking the supplies and they were using them as they needed.
Mhm.
And now they're purchasing them and stocking the supplies and the expenditures has gone up.
No, the hours has gone way up because we're making a request for a different level of cleaning.
Okay.
And the big point of contention was the public restrooms all summer long. Supplies were going missing, toilet paper and paper products just disappear, and we were getting constant complaints that things were out. So between the office personnel and the cleaning company, they've been stocking it as needed.
Gotcha. So is there anyone overseeing
Mhm.
what exactly is being done and how? Because I will say, I remember specifically looking at a spot in the office over there for, I don't know, several weeks where the puppy had gone to the bathroom and didn't get cleaned. And it was in a pretty obvious area. So are we making sure that they're actually doing their job?
Each department head, they're watching and making sure. That's one of the things we've asked them is saying, you want to make sure that this is all getting cleaned to the satisfaction. They basically said, this is what is not happening. We talked about it and she said, well, this is what it's gonna take and that's what we're doing.
Understood.
You have any other questions, Sadie?
I don't think so.
Anyone else have any other questions? You got more?
Yeah, you guys had asked for cash flow
Yeah.
at the last meeting, so we're having to flow in the next full fire.
Did you give that to us?
It's in your, it should be in your group with her presentation.
I've never seen that.
What's
It's in the PowerPoint. Do you have it? Is that printed? You didn't print it.
no.
Oh, never mind. You have to look- you have to turn it
I want to save some trees.
So July 2023, the town had $4 million in our savings account. July 2024, we ended the month at 2.7 million. We can tie that out to paying the paving in June for 512,000. And then last year, we had only paid for paving in late fall. So that didn't hit our bank account till November. And then this year in July, we paid for the ambulance at 229,000, and that also affects the cash flow. We just finished paying the last installment of the building repair for the big painting project. And that affected cash flow by 93,500. So that accounts for why our cash flow is tighter this year. We're getting the larger projects done a lot earlier and then paying the invoices. The next slide. On average, our bank account decreases $900 each month, excluding the tax collection months. So by mid-November is when we're projecting to draw on the tax anticipation note. And then the end of November, possibly the last week, and then in December is when we finally see our balance start upticking.
When do we typically get the rooms and meals payment from the state?
December,
December.
at the very end of the year. So that'll help.
Yeah, I mean, that's a big payment, so.
And then for the last bit of the presentation, the last couple meetings, I'd gone over the big $100,000 over expenditure in the EMS fund. So we've been looking into it so we can budget properly for 2025. What we found was the revenue began increasing in December 2023, and it's looking like it's related to the IFT and insurance payments for the interfacility transfers. And a little bit more information on that, the 2022 payments, we were getting about $9,700 a month from the insurance companies. 2023 payments, we were getting around $15,600 a month on average. And this year, from January to July, we were averaging 24,600. So it's looking like our cash flow is up $100,000 from last year just on those insurance payments hitting our bank account.
Do you think that's because we handed it over to a collection company? Have you seen an increase since then?
Not yet. They haven't. So what they did in July was write off everything below $250. So we processed the write-off. Jordan's been going through all the cash receipt books, looking for any other payments that we might have received but didn't register with the billing company, just to make sure we covered all of our bases. So they've been working on that for the last couple months. And I think now is when they're just starting to collect, but we haven't seen it in our bank account yet.
Do you think increase has something to do with the transportation program that's in place? Right?
Yeah, next slide gets into all the hours worked to get back up. So, going from the revenue, I worked in, I put a lot of analysis into the hours worked for the last couple of years. And I split out the on-call at $6 an hour, and then the hours that get paid at the straight hourly rate, and the two columns are the straight time versus the call time. So when we looked at the 2023 hours, just the straight time hours where people were getting paid their hourly rate and divided it by 2080, we get 5.3 full-time equivalent employees. And for 2024, Q1 and Q2, looking at those hours and projecting out to the end of the year, it's looking like 6.3 full-time equivalent employees. And I wanted to note that last year during the 2024 budget process, it had been brought up that we need to start looking at a full-time employee, but it got written out of the budget and didn't make it through the process. So we kind of anticipated this coming, but it didn't hit 2024 budget.
We actually have two full-time.
Yes, we have two full-time employees. The hours that we're currently paying are totaling 6 full-time employees.
Right.
So we're already paying the wages. And then I calculated on the next slide. We looked at what it would cost for benefits. So we're already paying all the full-time wages across all the part-time employees we have. And the most expensive insurance plan and retirement against the highest paramedic rate, it would equal a $44,000 cost of adding a full-time employee versus covering staff with all the current part-time positions. And it would really just help us with scheduling and having a streamlined approach instead of, I think right now, people sign up for shifts. Where if we added another full-time spot, you're just covering those hours with a full-time position.
Well, I mean, that's been the goal anyways with the transfers that would.
Yeah. As it increased.
Yeah.
So what we thought we were gonna need, we're actually finally seeing it in the numbers. And with the increased amount of insurance, it looks like we would be able to afford paying for benefits in retirement for a full-time position.
Are any of the part-time, do we know if any of the part-time are interested to go to a full-time position or?
This conversation has been happening just on the finance side. We
Right.
haven't even talked to the EMS. Yeah.
I'm just looking into it, trying to prepare for the 2025 budget.
Okay.
So,
And none of this would have an impact on the budget because, you know, it is paying for itself for these increases. Because the one thing that, well, Carrie Ann mentioned, like the $100,000 was taken out of the expense part of the budget last year.
Mhm.
The revenues have still gone up more than
To
that
cover it.
expense, so we just didn't align the expense with the revenue projection.
yes, so even though the budget we wrote for 2024 is going over, revenue has also increased. So revenue over expenses,
Right.
we're still covering our expenses.
So it'll be interesting to see how much more revenue we get from the collections piece as well. I mean, I know we're not gonna get 100%, but. Even
No,
for
because
non,
they get their fair
even,
share.
even not for inter facility transfers, so.
Right.
Good.
Has there been any changes made with the situation with Grafton? Is that helping as well, or have we got to that yet?
We haven't got that. Yeah.
That may, I mean, something to keep in mind, that may help even going forward. We're spending a lot of money in Grafton and we're not getting anything back.
Yeah, I mean, last time I checked, and you can, well, I mean, I don't know if you want to weigh in, it has not, it was not to the same extreme, but last time I checked that it was a year ago. So.
And,
Yeah.
you know, the
No.
one thing we want to reiterate,
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to say
So there's
that, but
There's a little of that, so we're using a couple of their providers are coming and working for our parts, us part-time making money on their facility transfers and that kind of leaving direct in your eyes, so it's kind of a little bit of a trade-off right at the moment.
okay,
That's not 100% of the way to look at business piece of it. But for right now, it's kind of a little sensitive area of, you know, if they're going on transfers and making us $4,000 or $5,000 a day, the thing that runs us into is when we start sending our full-time crew out there, that makes us be vulnerable also.
yeah,
So there's a lot of different little facets to look at that
Yeah.
right now.
and when we talked about the $100,000, last year, the 2023 payments were $187,000. And at this time, we're expecting 295 this year, so it's over $100,000 in increase in revenue on that. So we're seeing the benefit, we just didn't allocate the expense in the budget part, it's just for planning purposes.
yep. That's good.
That was the last slide.
Glad it was
We
in
were
there.
just getting settled in.
And I have one other question on the water and sewer person. Yeah, am I correct in hearing that we just hired a full-time on the water and sewer?
Yes.
So where did we find the funds to employ a full-time?
We put it in the budget last year for this year.
And it's in there?
It's currently in the budget, we have not added any new staff over and above what's in the budget.
Okay.
This is that state requirement that we have 2 people on staff.
Which they're starting to crack down on, so. Policy updates, 3 of them.
3 of them, yeah, basically, as we've gone through and questions have come up, I've been trying to find some of the policies that we have, you know, what did we have already memorialized? The 2 of the 3 policies that I have on the agenda, we had since 2009, they needed updating. And one of the other things that's been very hard to find is when it says on the top of the page that it was adopted, but it's in the computer. I don't know where we have an adopted or approved location and we don't have any signatures on it. So one of the things I wanted to do is start looking at the policies we already have. Updating the numbers or the language to meet today's standard. And then actually having the select board sign and we have a date that it's effective in this form. And we put those on the website and then we know where we are. So the fund balance policy, the only change that I made on that policy is where it says undesignated fund balance, DRA. Can you go up a little bit, Monica, to the first chart? All the language there is the same. but the 15% was 12% in the original.
Yep,
And what I basically also did was change where it says if the annual combined budget is. That first number in the old one said 45 million and went all the way up to 70. I thought, well, we're closer to the 10 million, so we're actually close to 15. So I put those numbers in for examples. So at 15 million, which I think we're 14 and change right now, is that correct? Or 16, 15? We're right around there for combined budget, right?
I don't know that off the top of my head.
Yeah, I think it's
Scroll
like,
and
I
count,
think it's
yeah.
14 and change. So when you look at, let's use 15 million as the example where I think we are. We are supposed to have $1.2 million in undesignated fund balance and 2.2 million is our goal. Should be our goal.
yes,
And then the Government Finance Officers Association and the GASB rules, they actually recommend 8% to 17%, and the 17% actually just means 2 months. And if you were, when you remember, Carrie Ann's presentation about what we spend per month on the total, but it's
Yep.
about $900,000.
Yep.
You know, $800,000 doesn't even cover a month, and GASB recommends we have 2 months in reserve. So you can cover unexpecteds, because that first 900,000 would cover a month that we don't have a, you know, like it's right before we're collecting taxes. But then if we had an emergency at that period of time, we would then be out again. So your
Yeah,
goal
never.
would be to have that little bit of a cushion. So this was just the examples, and if you go down a little further, we go to the next chart, which is basically, this is what the goal I'm recommending, and the select board can choose to adopt it, or we can think
so
about
that's
it.
the
till next
same
meeting.
numbers, right?
Yeah, it's the same numbers
Yeah.
as the first one, which was the state recommendation. And scroll down a little bit more to the next paragraph. I think the fund balance uses is the biggest conversation. The town select board may appropriate any amount of undesignated fund balance in excess of the designated percentage, or use the excess to offset property taxes as part of the final budget. So the select board would be able to say, well, we can't go below the 8%, but anything above that, they technically could offset in a year and things like that. We would hope we wouldn't do that till we get over the goal of the 15%. And then the select board may appropriate undesignated fund balances for emergency purpose as deemed necessary, even if such decreased uses. Fund balance goes below the designated percentage. Any emergency purchase does not include offsetting property taxes or mismanagement of funds, and that's related to current year issues. So that's just a recommendation. I basically put a signature thing in, we can put the date and go from there, and we can elect the punt, or we can move forward with that one. Like I said, these first two have been in supposedly, I don't mean that in a negative way, supposedly in that I can't find proof of
Right.
since 2009.
I have questions. So under minimum balance, it says the town shall achieve and maintain a minimum undesignated fund balance. I think we need another word in there.
Okay.
Of at least 8%, but of the general fund's annual budget, including town, school, and county appropriations.
Yeah, that's how the calculation is based on our monthly expense, which is everything.
Okay,
We're collecting the whole tax bill and then we're paying out to the school and the county.
And that's why the 2 month is to cover everything, not just town expenses.
okay. I think we need to indicate on the chart that this is our minimum and this is our target, the 8 and the 15. I don't think it's clear enough.
On the second, on this one, 'cause that's on the
I
second.
think even on the first one.
Even on the
if
first
we
one,
look
too.
That's fine.
at it,
Alright.
I think on this second page where it says target balance, I think we need to say the town shall work towards maintaining, but I think we need to modify this to say building an undesignated fund balance of at least 8%, and then reference the 5-year target date again.
Okay.
And then with it, and then maintain it going further, because we should revisit policy more often than every 5 year anyway, so we could modify that. And then on plan for target balances. If you have furthermore attaining the target balance level of 8% may also be achieved by adding a line item to annual budget for sole purpose of building fund balance if the council so chooses.
Well, it should be select board.
Okay,
But yeah, that's basically, we can say, well, we're just gonna put 50,000 a year into fund balance. I think that's, that's the goal there. We can actually just add a line item.
yeah, no, I just think the
So,
one council.
Yeah, select board,
um,
yeah.
And
Got
then,
all this, Roger? For notes?
So let's see.
Yeah.
Let's recommend for next meeting.
yes, I think what Roger suggested in his experience for 100 years doing minutes was that we go over these, we have corrections and we approve them at the next meeting.
Right.
So
Yeah,
we have all the
that's great.
transparency. So I mean, I can give you these with my notes. And then and so where it says approve, we just need to change that to select board instead of
Okay.
board of selectmen. Those are my only recommendations.
So we'll bring it back the next time with a.
Does
with a
anyone
final.
else have any?
You're the banker.
Yeah.
I gotta read through it. If I have any, I'll let you know.
And basically the same thing applies to the debt policy. We took an old policy, actually. I went back and checked, made sure the percentages were correct, none of that has changed. The only thing that I actually revised from the 2009 version. When it talks about in item D, total indebtedness is restricted by RSA 33(4) A and B. To an amount at any one time not to exceed 3% of the last locally assessed valuation of the municipality. As last equalized by the Commissioner of Revenue Administration. And then I added the phrase not including school debt because evidently a couple of years ago, they changed it that the school budget can be 7% of. So this is just for the town's portion and it does not apply to the school portion. So I just wanted that to be clear. And other than that, I didn't see anything else that needed major changes. But again, I invite comments.
I have comments. I think there is way too much in here that's too ambiguous, so I don't know that even adopting this will help us, because where it says, things like unusual equipment purchases. What is unusual, in this top line that will only borrow for that? So, and then when we have debt financing is not considered appropriate for recurring purpose such as current operating and maintenance expenditures, well, when we advance money from a TAN. That's debt
Well,
service.
technically, that
It's less
doesn't
than
apply,
12
that doesn't
months,
consider, right, but it doesn't consider, it's not considered debt, like. Long-term debt, because anything you can do borrowing for up to a year
Without.
without
voter
a voter approval, this is like voter approved debt, we can write it that way.
So I
voter
think we need,
approved debt.
yeah, I
Yeah, I
think we
think
need to
I-
call that out.
Yeah.
And then I mean, is really interfund borrowing a thing? Do we really ever borrow from another town? If we look at the back,
Well, interfund usually means like we borrow from. Our trust funds, things of that nature, it's funds within the town, we have other funds that you're using this fund, and you don't really want to do any of that.
so I think we need to change this to say that we will not
Yeah.
do any
right,
interfund
okay.
borrowing, like just absolutely not, because. Our trustees would never let us anyway.
Well, the next thing is, if this says yes, your trustee of trust funds. Their rules and regulations might say no.
Right. Well, I sent this one and the code of ethics policy, because that was a new thing. Sent both to the attorney for comment as well. So when I get that back and then I can redistribute and we can have our conversation too. I'll make the changes
Yeah,
we
I
talked about.
just think there's too much in it that
Okay,
doesn't really adopt a policy, because whoever's reading it can interpret it how they want.
okay, we can clean that up.
Thanks for putting that in words, because I read through this 3 times and I still wasn't really happy with it.
But I like this one.
That's the one that hasn't gone to the lawyer yet, so when it comes back. to the
Well,
lawyer, it'll be stuff.
we haven't heard back from him. But yeah, he has. And basically, this is just, identifying the roles and conduct of public.
You like that it says selectmen?
Yeah, the only thing that, it refers to selectmen throughout a couple of times. Well, so in all
wrote
fairness,
that?
I think. Harry and, look to other towns to get some of this. But yeah, it says Board of Selectmen a lot in it, so if we could just change that to be more gender neutral, but other than that, I have no comments on this one.
Okay.
I think that it really calls out that the chair of a board or committee needs to really ensure that people are following this, and I like that. I think that we have to make sure that various chairs know that to try to keep meetings on track and not allow them to be derailed or unproductive. Not you, Stephen.
Gotta say,
Um,
if nothing, I try to keep us on track.
so. Yeah, I like this one.
I agree.
So last night was the first time in all the years I've been doing this at a school board where they actually passed a motion to transfer money from this line item in the budget to that line. I've never seen it
They don't
before.
have to, right?
I imagine that might be a thing. In that one with interfund you were talking.
That's what I was thinking too.
Well, you're
If the board said,
technically,
let's do this.
technically, when the voters vote to approve the budget, they're approving the entire amount, how it's broken down. So you can overexpend a line, underexpend a line.
Yes, if
Yeah.
you just can't.
That's why they call it
overspend the
proposed
entire- yeah,
budget.
The general fund, you just can't. And so years ago, when the select board pulled the petition warrant articles out for service agencies, I was initially against it, but then they said, if it's just in the general fund budget and we spend it on something else, we don't have to pay. Like, oh, well, that's not really fair, so.
I haven't seen the motion actually.
Oh, yeah, I've never seen that either, but it's just.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jack. Rest of your update?
Just a couple things, as an FYI, our part-time ground staff, resigned. Found a better opportunity and moved on. He think he's going to work at, Hypertherm actually. And our health officer resigned the other day, and I responded with an email to have a conversation and haven't had a response yet, so we'll reserve discussion about that till we finalize whatever that situation is.
Okay.
Just an FYI, as part of our IT shift, we have learned that our website is hosted through that group as a subset of their company. And we're gonna have to get
Through Twin Bridges?
yes, we're gonna have to get, well, it's not, what is it, the son's name
Well,
of this company or whatever that is. But we're going to have to get them to either sign off and give it to us or go somewhere else. We decided to, just in case, do some research, Monica, I and
Carrie Ann.
Carrie Ann, actually had a meeting with, Civic Plus, which is the one that like 90-something% of the towns in Vermont and New Hampshire use. And Enfield uses them, I think Grafton does too.
Yeah.
And we're getting a proposal, to see what it would be, and there it's more expensive than what we're doing, but it's also far more user friendly, and it's better with its ADA requirements and things of that nature, so we'll be. Once we have that proposal, we'll be bringing that back to you for a conversation,
And how close are we to making the switch?
next week.
Okay. And
And the only other thing I have is 2 of the trailers that were scrapped have now been scrapped. We got about $1,000. That was 2 of the trailers at the transfer station. The one that had the fire has not been scrapped yet, as we don't have a resolution yet from Primex.
Okay. So we're switching, we're putting metal in the containers over there.
Yeah,
Started
basically,
this
we had
week.
a company come in that said no cost to the town. They
Yeah.
gave us, how much it was a fund, I have to go back and look at the document. And we have to do nothing other than give them the space to put the dumpsters in, they fill them up, they take them out, they bring them back, and we get a check.
Good. It should be a better check too, because we're not gonna be sending them half the dirt that.
Right, and that's one of the benefits, and we had because we had the wall
Yeah.
right there, they can throw the stuff in, and we're in a good place. I think that was
reduces the
an easy
liability.
decision.
Reduces the liability of people walking where stuff is
been dumped on the ground.
Now they'll climb down into the dumpster and.
Yeah.
Skip and find it, so I'm not sure that's a good argument there, Scott.
Well, that,
True dumpster diving.
True, exactly.
that's something that has to be watched everywhere, whether it's on the ground or in a barn.
And since we're talking about transfer, did we purchase a skid steer yet? I know we've looked at
We
a
had-
couple of them.
One of them got sold. We're chasing a bunch of them. We're
Yeah.
having, getting phone calls back and
Okay,
but Bob is on it and he's gonna go try them out. And we're gonna go make sure we're good. So
Okay.
we're working on that.
Well, on the transfer station, have we done anything about the buildings and mold?
Not yet.
How about the deck when everybody walks up, throws the trash in?
Not yet.
That's dropped up.
These are things that, we're right now, we're trying to take care of all the holes in the buildings. And we're moving to the next stage, yeah.
So
We're
I
getting
would
there.
just say that for anybody who doesn't realize that the deck where the people walk out to dump their trash into the hopper is being held and propped up by boards because it's not attached on one side. JR's been talking about that for months. So there's that, the holes in the building, the mildew, the mold issue that JR sits in every day, that stuff that was talked about months ago, so. Yeah, it seemed like pretty easy to fix this.
anything for other business?
They're a lot less expensive than the liability that goes along with them, I would say. I have a time for other business. Is it time for other business?
It is,
So that transfer station was one of the things I was curious if anybody has ever gone over since and looked it over at all and made any decisions about the buildings.
no decisions have been made, Dan, but we have been over there. I know, Chet's been over there. I've been over there talking to JR, so.
I've been over there.
I haven't,
Scott's
Yeah.
been-
I'm just not a Willow fan.
So it's been made aware to me that, and rumor has it, we've got ourselves in a situation in regards to some tax properties. And I've been getting asked questions about it, so I'm coming here because I told them it's not my gig anymore, so. But I'd like to have some sort of knowledge. So the properties that were sold for the tax auctions a few years ago. Is there or is there not a scenario that we're in as the town where we have didn't act appropriately with those sales? And what is the status of it? Because when I left, I knew we were starting to get into a jam. And I'm wondering if we actually got into that jam or not.
We got into a jam. It was a property that was sold in 2021. The property, and I think we went through this 2 months ago, in the meetings. What happened was, the property was given a tax mortgage, in 2017, don't quote me please, but I think it was 2017. That basically took care of the 3 previous years' taxes due. And then 3 years later, we put it to tax sale because they hadn't paid the next 3 years. But when we talked to the attorney and somebody was buying the property, that's where this came from. And it was, what, I forgot his name, Tony.
Yeah.
Basically what happened was
Because we were lien holder, we had to foreclose and not put it up for.
foreclosure,
tax
yeah, we used the wrong procedure. We could not have tax sold it. In addition, so what we were gonna have to do is technically buy the land back. And then go through the process of fixing it. The attorneys, both from the buyer and our attorney. Said the other solution was that the original owner could sign a quitclaim deed. Okay, that would take the process all out of it, make it all legal. What the town also had not done, which we found out, was there was an excess of $35,000 of what the property was sold for compared to the original redemption letter that was sent to the original owners.
Okay.
And we had held on to that, it just was in the bank. And part of this process, there was a payment from the buyers, a payment from the town, we paid all of that money that we had to pay anyway. And right now, the issue we have out there still related to that is the possibility of up to $10,000 worth of legal fees. That were generated as part of it, but we have not received a claim for that at this time. That's where that went.
And did we ever track down the $20,000 that wasn't accounted for? So the property was sold for 42, we only showed 22 on the books.
There was 22 at Grafton County, we don't know, the sale price minus what the letter was is what the owners got. The town got its $9,000 worth of taxes at the sale.
Yeah.
35,000 was returned, which brought it to the 44. So all of that has been accounted for, but I don't understand why at the Grafton County, it said the purchase price was 22. Don't know the answer to that. But it didn't have any effect on what we were doing.
Thank you.
Anything else from anyone? We have a motion to adjourn,
So moved.
Second,
all in favor?
Well, you have to move to go into a non-public first? Or after?
First, I was gonna do it after.
I'll move that we adjourn into non-public.
I'll second.
Because when it's still part of the meeting.
All right. All right, I need to give this pen back and borrow one because it's a nice pen. I don't want to keep it.